Not do what? Good evening, good afternoon, good morning everyone, wherever you are. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce my father, Mark Thompson.
Hello.
Also known as The Beast, on page and in real life actually. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess so, you told me.
Yes. I'm not used to sharing the camera space with other people, so this is a new experience for me. So we'll have to see how this goes. We've already had our first squabble as to where this video is going to take place. My dad wanted to do it in the kitchen, I wanted to do it here, and of course I prevailed. Let's see. Now we have a very similar temperament. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, we're very headstrong.
Yes. Sorry, we're being distracted by our dogs at present. Hey! Calm down. We're very, headstrong, would you say?
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah, but we have very different personalities.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
We've got completely different interests, completely different opposing worldviews, I'd say.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yes.
Although, temperamentally, we are very alike.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Yes. Okay. So, I suppose we're going to discuss my book, The PDA Paradox, The Highs and Lows of My Life on a little known part of the autism spectrum in fine books everywhere. And I'm going to ask you a few questions that have been put out to me by...
I'm sure people are interested.
I'm sure they are, yes. So, did you enjoy the book?
I did. It wasn't easy.
No?
No. But at the end of the day, I took it as it was, and I might not agree with it inwardly, but with a few things. But,
Yeah.
And you could argue it was quite hard cutting and edged on my side, but I suppose I actually understand now the reasons why things happened.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I mean, you noticed you only have to flick through the first 3 pages to find that it's dedicated to you. We apologise for the noise. Our dogs are fighting. Should we put them out?
Yes.
Okay. 1 minute. Apologies. I suppose I'll keep you all entertained whilst my father puts the dogs back in their room. So as I said, we're very similar in a lot of ways. I suppose we have the same temperament. We both like being in control. I'm going to say that now because he's probably going to disagree with me on that point. We're both driven by, I suppose, a desire to succeed. And sometimes that can be a good thing and a bad thing.
Sorry, I'm back.
Okay, he's back. So yeah, you were saying it was hard hitting at times.
Hey, listen, for any parent to read that, it's going to be hard.
No, of course.
And whether you want to believe it or not, the reality was what it was. So
no, I know. And the thing is, I didn't receive my PDA diagnosis until I was 18, by which time I'd already left home. So I suppose as I was growing up, we were confused as to the true nature of my difficulties. It never made sense.
Oh, we knew there was something wrong.
Wrong?
Well, not wrong. Okay, I'll rephrase that.
Yeah.
We knew something was up.
Yeah.
Whether it be right or wrong, we just had to find a way to get the right diagnosis in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what do you think we bond over most?
Humour.
I think so. Yeah, I was going to say that. Like when we do impressions of people.
Yeah.
We like characters, don't we?
Yes.
And we like doing impressions of characters.
Yes.
Yeah. We both like fairly, I don't know, we find repulsive men funny, like in characters in sitcoms or...
Yeah, when you say repulsive, just certain
Yeah,
people. Yeah. So we have a sort of like bizarre sense of humour.
Yeah. Because I'd say that with Mum, it was probably more.
That would go over her head.
Do you think?
Yeah.
I'd say my
She wouldn't find that funny at all.
No, she wouldn't. No. So we've got a similar sense of humour, as well as I was saying before, a desire to succeed and maybe staying in control. I'm happy to admit that. Would you?
Yeah. In my life at work, for sure.
Yeah.
Not necessarily at home, even though you might think so, but definitely at work. Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. So you enjoyed the book. Would you say you have any Are there any highlights or low points for you?
I wouldn't say highlights, because most of the book was a sort of stark reality of what happened, and then reading about a few things that I didn't know went on was shocking.
Of course, it must have been quite jarring, because I had to reveal a lot. Because
things that you didn't tell me, but so that was a shock.
Yeah. Okay.
But then part of the book at the beginning was the fact that you thought I wasn't around because I was at work, so I may have missed stuff.
No, that's true, because you worked long hours and you still do. So you were to some degree detached from what was going on.
No, definitely not detached. I knew there was some stuff going on, just that I had commitments and pressure at work. And then I came back, and then obviously it was manifested when I got back. Yeah,
that's a good point. What is your understanding of PDA or autism?
That you have to be very patient, which I probably wasn't at the beginning. And you have to be very understanding, and you have to have unbelievable patience and resilience as a parent.
Yeah. So if I were to ask you to define PDA or autism, perhaps, what would you say?
Well, that's a hell of a question.
Yeah, the distinguishing characteristics. So, as
frustrating.
No, I meant more to define the nature of the condition. So, do you?
I mean, I could speak about this all day. I mean, obviously, I didn't understand it at the beginning.
Yeah.
But if you're asking me, how do you cope with the nature of it?
Not necessarily cope. More, do you know anything about PDA? Like, if I were to ask you, describe the PDA profile.
No, I learned about it the hard way.
Okay, you learned about it the hard way.
So
through direct experience.
In a reverse way, through experience.
Okay, right.
Which wasn't necessarily the right way.
Yeah.
But I was on the receiving end of most of it.
No, that's. Some would argue that could be the best way to learn it in a way, because there's no ambiguity. It's clear. It's right.
Well,
it's right.
Not necessarily, because I didn't understand it, so it was all a bit of a shock. It was like all or nothing. So, it was literally in your face shock rather than a build up.
Okay, I see. Let's see. Why do you think that the world is particularly tough for autistic people?
Because the world isn't prepared for it. So there's no measures in place to cope with it. So the world is quite mainstream, and the whole system from schooling, which is the most important thing, is just not geared for it.
No.
And there's no funding for it either.
Yeah, the system fails to meet the basic needs of autistic
I think the
people.
teachers want to, but they just don't have.
It's very hard to convey.
I think Ofsted doesn't allow for sort of like the off-centre stuff. They just want results and marks and good results on exams and stuff. Whereas the people that aren't suited to the system will fall by the wayside. Yeah,
it's interesting because the educational system is, for all intents and purposes, based on a reward and punishment system. You're valued on.
Well, it's not necessarily punishment. It's just that you are left like cast aside.
Punishment in a sense that if you fail to meet the standard, then you run into problems, and autistic people may be at a disadvantage because they can't meet the standard.
Oh, yeah, completely.
People with PDA especially, notoriously...
Well, not just PDA.
Well, I was just going to go on to say...
Across the spectrum.
Yes, but people with PDA notoriously don't respond well to reward and punishment.
No, completely.
Yeah. Which makes school that much more impossible. So... Yes. Do you identify with autism at all? If so, how has it held you back? Or how has it helped you?
No, at the beginning, you're in denial. So you want...
I mean, you as a person.
No, as a person or as a father or parent, the perception of having children is to have the perfect child.
Yeah.
So anything that goes slightly askewed would be scary and frightening.
Yeah. And
you could be in denial.
Right.
So there'd be a lot of denial at the beginning and brushing yourself under the carpet.
Yeah, okay. But I think it meant more, do you ever think, can you identify any autistic traits within yourself?
Me?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah?
Yeah.
100%. And do you find that it holds you back, or do you view it as a kind of asset?
I find it's an asset and I've conquered it.
Yeah.
And I use it for my success.
And I think you essentially channel it at work, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. In my book, you probably heard me describe this phenomenon of a natural habitat, whereby the environment is kind of tailored to your individual needs,
I like my home
and you
life.
can can apply yourself.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's like tunnel vision.
Yeah. So I would argue that depending on where you are and who you're with, it becomes a gift or a curse, you know. So in certain situations, it can hold. Hold us
I'm
back.
lucky because people are interested in my job.
Yeah, and you're very in the flow at work.
100%.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd see it as an asset most of the time.
Totally.
Yeah. So let's think. Would you have done anything differently whilst my siblings and I, your children, were growing up?
Would I have done anything differently? No, because even though you think that I wasn't there, I was, because I exuded all my energies into all of you at the weekends.
No, yeah.
So you can't deny that.
Yeah.
During the week, I just let your mother, who was more suited to dealing with it, and now you could argue that's wrong because it could have been a dual thing. But I worked very long hours, so when I came back, I kind of inherited it when I got back.
Yeah.
But the weekends, no, I think I put literally every effort into.
So it was compensation on the weekend, do you think?
Compensation.
As in compensating for
time.
Yeah, for time
not spent.
Where you weren't there during the week.
Yeah.
But
I can't help the hours I did.
No, I know. I'm not saying that.
Or do.
No. So you think that you did the best you could? Do you feel that you did the best you could?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And also feel whether it's in a monetary value, whether that's right or wrong, I provided for my family.
Okay. That's fair. Okay. So when I was originally diagnosed, I suppose this would be
in Birmingham.
In Birmingham, I did receive an ADHD diagnosis a year before then.
Yeah.
But let's focus on autism, seeing as this is the theme for today.
Well, I would say that was a relief.
It was a relief for you, yeah?
Yeah, because then we could move to the next step.
Because it yielded an explanation. It's like,
yes.
Oh, that makes sense now. That's why he's doing that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was relieving.
Well, it was
shocking, or was it disappointing?
No, it wasn't. No, neither of those. It just answered all the unanswered questions.
Yeah. So you never thought, oh God, if only he could have been a normal boy. You didn't think that at all?
No.
No. Okay, that's good. Let me see. Okay, so now...
Well, you are what you are.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. I'm going to go on to ask questions that were put across to me on Facebook now. So, someone asks, what percentage of adults get to lead a life like people without PDA? My daughter is 19, very clever, but right now, from what I know of her, she will never be able to go out and enjoy life, have a career due to her anxiety, and hating being around people she doesn't know. Do things get better as she gets older, as in understanding herself more and be able to control her condition? Thanks. I suppose I'll start here.
Well, I can answer some of that.
Can I have a go at going first?
Okay, go. Sorry, I thought
stealing my limelight. I'm slightly puzzled by the phrasing at the beginning, gets to lead a life like people without PDA. because lives come in many different shapes and forms. I suppose if you were to ask, is success possible given your daughter's neurotype, then I'd say yes, absolutely. How do we foster motivation, and how can it be applied is another kettle of fish altogether. I suppose it's very difficult to teach people how to be self-aware because the process is very much internal. It's only internal, really. If it's a PDA thing, obviously we know that depersonalizing techniques are often proven to be effective, such as for the parent or caregiver or friend or whomever it is outside with whom they have a trusting relationship, they become or embody that which they want their daughter, friend or whomever to become with PDA. The PDA is always looking for inspiration outside of themselves. They're always looking for the next best thing. So if they can perceive a process happening outside of them whereby self-awareness or delving into yourself is appealing, then the PDA wishes to do the same. We all know you can't instruct the PDA or lay down injunctions or commands, because that will cause the opposite effect of what we want. So instead of commanding someone to be self-aware, it's far more effective that self-awareness be demonstrated indirectly outside. And obviously, as my dad mentioned earlier about his work and how he applies himself through work, it's always useful to follow that which we are hyper focused on. So for me, it is this: doing videos and doing the talks I do, writing my book. My dad feels the same thing at work, where he's really plugged in, and that is all that can really guide us at the end.
That's not a bad thing, because
no, it's not. It's a good thing.
If you can channel the talents you have or the interests you have into something, whatever it is, and you're successful on the back of it, then that's a good thing.
No, absolutely.
So to answer the initial question, is there any hope for
as she gets older?
As she gets older, absolutely yes.
Yes.
Because there is a point where maturity steps in as well, and then you suddenly realise, like most people don't actually know what they want to do by the time they're 24, 25.
And I think the PDA has an advantage there, because the PDA is bound by what they want to do and what they don't want to do. It's extremely clear. The only thing that makes it difficult are the circumstances outside. And as to because we need to move on to other questions, will she be able to control her condition more? Yes, when you learn not to resist it but to submit to it. So what do you think a dad can offer that a mum can't to a son with PDA?
Well, I'd like to think you both have to do it, actually, not just one person.
A joint effort.
Yeah, I think that's completely wrong to think that a dad or a mother could contribute more than the other, because everybody has their own.
So you're saying each occupy their own role?
100%, yeah. You can't differentiate. That's not right.
Okay. Do you remember when I was... we've already asked this one. So the same question twice, excuse me. Moving on to the next. Do you feel it is difficult as a father to adopt a low or no demand approach to parenting which is most suited to PDA? Is there anything you would have done differently had I received my diagnosis at a young age? Now, we've answered the second question already, and I should go on to say that I mentioned this earlier in the video. I didn't have a PDA journey with my parents because I was diagnosed at 18, by which time I'd left home. But you're welcome to share your thoughts on having low or no demands in the household, as we said, we talked about being headstrong and being essentially governed by your interests and not willing to compromise.
Nothing was going to stop you on your journey.
Yeah, nothing.
No matter what we did.
Yeah,
it's impossible.
Okay.
And I'll give you an example. We tried 3 schools because we thought that was the best route, and everything failed.
Yeah. Okay. Amen.
You can't stop a tsunami.
Oh, the cheek of it. Let's see. What ways did you find to change people's understanding away from bad parenting to recognising and accepting PDA? Or did you just accept that in some people's cases they would refuse to get it, possibly PDA themselves, and not use any more energy and resilience trying to convince them?
Well, I think I answered that just now. The fact of the matter is that for any parent watching this, there is no easy answer. And that's not necessarily the answer you want to hear, but you've got to allow your child to express yourself, whether it be painful or not, and the end results will come, but never give up. Because if you try and change the course, then you're going to go down the wrong avenues. You just got to let it go. Now, along the way, there'll be lots of hurdles, cul-de-sacs, dead ends, and you despair. There's no question, you despair at times, but you just kind of know that it will be all right in the end, but you have to keep the faith.
Okay. Let's see. How do you prove to authorities, and I'm going to answer this question first, because I can see what it is, and it's got me riled up already. How do you prove to authorities that you relate to PDA, self-diagnosed, when you mask extremely well and can come across as confident, especially when fighting for the right support for your self-diagnosed daughter with PDA? I want to claim PIP and DSA, but it was really hard to get the correct PIP scores for my daughter who has complex needs. So I'm not sure if they would even consider me for PIP because they don't see the inward struggles I have. Okay, as I said, I'm going to answer this one. I've been there in the past, and if there's anyone I'd like to sit down and tie to a chair and deliver a strongly felt sermon to, it would be the people of the DWP who are not even dealing with applicants directly, as in you go in for an assessment and then you convey to them your symptoms and why life doesn't work and whatever, and then it gets passed on and a process of Chinese whispers ensues, and eventually it arrives at the decision maker who won't have any contact with you, who won't know your story, who you can guarantee will have zero understanding of PDA in this example. So it is a tedious process that looks as though it's designed to suck the will to live from said person. And the best thing you can do is paint the worst possible picture, as in, because masking is a huge problem. I say problem. It can be an advantage, and sometimes it's a complete disadvantage. It's an advantage when, now the PDA are masks because they seek to exploit, or they seek to gain, or they seek to protect. So these strong and sturdy walls are in place, fortifying the vulnerable PDAer who cowers beneath. But in this situation, one can only describe the behaviour at its worst. And I think it's extremely dangerous to assume someone is either faking it or exaggerating, because the cost of assuming someone is exaggerating or faking it is far too great. One example that springs to mind is, do you remember that Swiss pilot who flew the plane into the mountain?
Mm.
Now, he had signed off, but all he did was, on his way back, he wanted to go back to work. Obviously, he devised this deeply disturbing scheme. But all he had to say was, "I'm fine now," and that was it. They allowed him to work again. And that's an example of how much in our infancy we are when it comes to mental health. because it's such a complex problem that's hard to describe and hard to convey. As in someone's inner world, someone's complicated that's in a world that's invisible to everyone but the person suffering. So you can only enter the office with the worst possible stories, your worst possible stories cocked and loaded in the barrel, in order to convince them. Because it's dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. This is why people end up doing horrible things to themselves, because they're not taken seriously. So PIP and ESA, the DWP, in general, is a cause for concern. Okay. Next question. Harry, I would love to hear your take on teaching an older child, of an 11-year-old, consequences to actions. I'm currently embroiled in a bit of an agreement with school over slapping sanctions on him for bits of disruptive/challenging behaviour when they've not been meeting needs. I'm more in favour of using incentives and natural consequences and giving choices. What's your view/experience? Yes, I echo what you say completely. Natural consequences are far more effective because fire is a good example. You say to a PDA child, don't play with fire, and they go against that injunction and proceed to play with the fire. Now, sometimes what's driving demand avoidance is curiosity to the nth degree. Sometimes fire can prove to be the more valuable teacher than the parent. Because the fire's just there, all alluring, and it piques our interest. Therefore, we want to touch it, and it's probably a bit of a dangerous example to use. But if the PDA's incentive is, what does fire mean? What is the experience of fire? Getting burnt immediately teaches them that lesson, because don't play with fire doesn't teach them anything. Their brains are hungering for information, for the answer that they seek. So because natural consequences come with no agenda and they're not complicated, they can often provide the perfect lesson. It is hard. Obviously, you have to allow their curiosity to lead them, and you have to respond to the curiosity, no matter how many questions. And we know there are millions and millions and millions of questions that they ask, but you have to keep answering them until they are satisfied. So it's about slaking the curiosity rather than establishing boundaries, because once their curiosity has been slaked, then they will form the boundaries themselves. That's how they learn. And then this is the last one. It's for me and you, you and me rather. Harry and Harry's dad. How do you learn to respect each other? I've watched clips where Harry respectfully talks about Dad's career choice. What are your top tips to other families on staying together and supporting one another when your brains are wired differently? I find my own suspected PDA 8-year-old son so frustrating. He is bright, but currently not motivated by education at all. Do we respect each other?
Yeah.
We do more now, don't we?
Yeah. Only because
we want to wring each other's necks sometimes.
In the beginning, I couldn't understand why you wouldn't adhere to an order, i.e. stop doing that please, or don't do that, don't do this.
It's triggering me now.
Yeah. So I think the answer to that is that you have to find a happy medium.
Compromises?
A complete compromise. So just train yourself as a parent to not do the norm and just, say, if you do that again, I will do this to you, or if you do this again, I'll take that away from you. If you do this again, you can't watch TV, whatever. Just kind of embracing a sort of like, should we say, a different kind of answer, which makes you think, go, oh, that wasn't the answer I was expecting.
Yeah, doing the unexpected.
Doing the unexpected
is something
or just really, if you are really frustrated, and most of the time most parents are incredibly frustrated and you want to scream, actually stand back, hold back, because the more assertive you are, you'll make it trebly worse.
Okay, thank you. And that brings us to the end of the questions. Did you enjoy that?
I did.
Good.
I did.
That's the main thing.
I thought, I think my message to any parent watching this or want any advice, read the book, because you can imagine that was very difficult for me to read that. It wasn't complimentary at the best of times, but it was also shocking at most times. But at the end of the day, all I'm going to say is never give up, because there were times when we all wanted to give up and we were at our last gasp moment. Yeah, exactly. But you know, all the things we there's a journey as well. So don't forget, there is a journey. So all the things that you think now you'll be walking through treacle, it will get better, but you have to understand the process. And once you understand the process and understand what it's all about, then you will have a much better time. But if you fight against it, then you'll be fighting against it all your life.
Thank you very much, Beast.
There you go. Thank you. From the Beast. Thank you.
See ya.